That's right, let's get to Scotland now, and a big week for Steve Clarke as they look to maintain their status in League A. They're currently bottom, but the group remains really wide open ahead of final games against Croatia and Poland. Our reporter Gordon Duncan is live for us from Hampden Park. Good to see you again, Gordon. Two big games coming up for Scotland there. What do they need to do to get the result?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, Scotland have to take care of business against Croatia here to then give them a chance of maintaining that optimistic outlook and even sneaking into second place. 2 wins could do that. That's the message from Steve Clarke. He's trying to turn performances into points. He's been pretty pleased with the level of performance, but they maybe just haven't been able to get that over the line and turn them into wins. If Scotland were to lose against Croatia and then Poland were to pick up anything against Portugal, Scotland would be relegated. The relegation would be sealed, but as we said, Scotland trying to maintain a more optimistic outlook, try and win both the games and try and still finish second. So it's been an interesting campaign off the back of a disappointing Euros. There's an acceptance that this is the top table of the Nations League and it's going to be tough and the margins are going to be small. And I think that's what Steve Clarke's Scotland have certainly found. You look at all the performances really and all the results, very close in every game, getting better and better each time, and then the 0-0 draw here with Portugal last time out. I think many people clearly expected Cristiano Ronaldo and co to rock up here and win, but Scotland did really well, drew the game 0-0, and you wonder if that's given Steve Clarke's side a platform to build on going into Croatia and Poland. There was actually more of a wider discussion going on at his press conference today though, because there is still a fear from many that once the reliable batch like Andy Robertson and John McGinn, once they eventually come to the end, what is coming next, what's coming through for Scotland? There have been some stats that have been widely discussed this week about the lack of Scottish players under the age of 21 getting game time in the Scottish Premiership. So that's come across Steve Clarke's desk as well. He clearly feels quite passionately about it, and he's calling on everyone in Scottish football to really pull together, his bosses here at Hampden, but also the clubs as well, to try and do more to get young players game time to ultimately benefit the national team.
Obviously I'm head coach and I concentrate when I come to these camps on trying to get the points and the results that we want for the Tartan Army that come to watch us. Going down into the youth level is probably needs somebody with a different skill set, or me to step away for this job and maybe go away and think about it a little bit more deeply. But I'll go back to the point I made earlier, is if we continue to do what we're doing, we'll always get what we get. So we have to try and find a way. But that has to be driven, the change has to be driven from the top. So we have to get to the top and say, look, they have to understand that we need to change, and then we try to change.
Do you think that understanding is there though, Steve, from the guys at the top? Because Gordon Strachan used to speak about this when he was sitting where you're sitting.
Yeah, I'm sure previous head coaches have done it before, going way back. Is there an understanding? Yeah, I think there is an understanding, but it needs a collective understanding. It's not just the people at the Scottish FA, it's the people that are in charge at the clubs. Everybody has to sit down and try to work out a way that we can improve moving forward.
Not enough young Scottish players at clubs. Can we get to that level? Do you think it's possible to get to a point where we're qualifying and being successful at tournaments?
Yes, but I think we still have a lot of work to do, and at some stage we have to sit down, or somebody has to sit down, whoever it is, the think tank, if you like. We need to come up with something that's maybe a little bit different that we haven't tried before, to see if we can improve it. Because if we keep doing what we're doing, it's not going to get any better. So we have to try and improve.
OK, so that's the future then, but a big performance is required in the short term. So could Scott McTominay be the one to keep Scotland's chances alive, do you think, Gordon?
He so often is the go-to guy, particularly over the last couple of campaigns. If you look at Scotland's road to the previous Euros, 8 goals from Scott McTominay. He kicked it off with a double here against Cyprus. Then in the midweek he got a double here against Spain and really set Scotland on their way. Of course, he scored for Scotland at the Euros, albeit that ended in disappointment for the team. And it's really hard to overstate his influence on this team. Of course, a history lesson going back to that discussion and whether Scott McTominay would come and play for Scotland or whether England would be an option. Since then, he's come in as that maybe traditional holding midfielder that people thought he was. For Euro 2020, Steve Clarke had to use him in a back three. He went in, never moaned, no questions asked, helped Scotland qualify in a back three. He's then turned him into a goal-scoring midfielder in the most recent campaign. And you now look at what he's doing at club level, because all of those good things Scott McTominay has done for Scotland whilst at Manchester United, it hasn't always been plain sailing in the background at club level. As I'm sure you know, a lot of negativity about Manchester United, maybe about him, but he always managed to come here and perform well. So I think Scotland fans are now excited to see if he can take it on even further now that he's scoring for Napoli. Napoli are top of the Serie A. He scored against Inter Milan away on Sunday in his last game before joining up here. So I think everyone's got high hopes for him. You could detect a slight hesitancy from him. I don't think he wanted to discuss Manchester United or the move too much today, but he did say he's got no regrets and he's happy with the way things have gone.
Yeah, it was obviously it's a big decision. There's no denying that it was a huge decision for me and my family and my friends. So yeah, I mean, times like that in your life, you just have to say, do I want to do it? Absolutely, and go for it. There's no looking back. I've never had any regrets in my life or my career, and I'll continue that way to this day. So for me, I want my career to be successful, and I'm going to go out my way to try and push myself to be the best football player and best person that I can possibly be as well. Yeah, I always give my absolute best no matter where I'm playing my football, and for me, the dedication and professionalism that I've tried to keep a hold of myself and the things that I've done throughout my career has always given me the best platform to play as well as I possibly can do, and that's all I really focus on, to be honest. I don't think about any external things. Football's my sole driving force in my life, and I just want to play as good as I can every time I get on the pitch.
As you would imagine, Scott McTominay tends to be nailed on to play these games in Scotland's midfield. Billy Gilmour usually in there as well. There was a time, for a long time, John McGinn would be nailed on, but it's going to be interesting, that one, because in the previous camp, John McGinn wasn't available due to injury, the Aston Villa captain, so often a talisman for Scotland as well. And Kenny McLean of Norwich performed brilliantly in there, Ryan Christie of Bournemouth in, and Scotland got a really impressive result. Now, on paper, John McGinn tends to play as well, but Steve Clarke says he's had sleepless nights coming up with his midfield department for tomorrow evening. We'll see what he comes up with, because it is a big game for Scotland. They're going to take on Croatia here tomorrow, trying to stay alive in the Nations League and then maybe even sneak into that top two as well.
Yeah, it is a big game indeed. Thank you very much, Gordon.